welcome. It's Alison from Bag Ladybird Learn to Sew here. Welcome. So if you're starting 2022 with the desire to learn how to sew, I'm here to help you with sewing around curves. So I'll show you all the tips that I use with my students to help them when they're first starting out to get to grips with sewing curves. Let's get started. So first of all, we're going to do an outside curve. So sewing around here, keeping the edges of the stitch line even to the edge of the fabric. So we call this a seam allowance, the distance from the edge of the fabric to the stitch line. So with this, we're going to do a seam allowance of 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters. Normal stitch length is 2.5. So I'll reverse back and then come forward. So I'm just keeping my eye lined up with the seam line there, the seam allowance guide, and we're just going to come forward. And with this inside seam, what I'm going to do is gradually move my hands towards the right and towards me. So my left hand will move towards me, my right hand will move towards the right. And that is how we effectively come around this curve. So I'm keeping my eye here, level with the needle, and making sure the edge of the fabric stays level with that. If you're struggling going around a tight curve, one thing you can do is reduce your stitch length. So you go down to a stitch length of approximately 2, and that will help you come around the curve in smaller bites, in smaller steps, and come around there. So we come around here and back tack. Okay, so we've sewn neatly and evenly around this curve. So next we're going to do an inside curve. So start again. We'll be using, well, let's use a smaller seam allowance. Let's use 3/8 of an inch. So that's a smaller seam allowance. Needle down, reverse back, and I just hold the threads. When I'm reversing back, I just hold the threads with my fingers, and I hold my left hand in like an L shape. So my thumb is holding the fabric here, my fingers are holding the threads at the back. So just my right hand is holding the reverse button, holding that down. So once we've done that, and this time I'm going to be moving my hands. My left hand will move back and my right hand will move towards the right. So as we're coming around this curve, and the more control you have with your foot pedal, the more even your speed, the slower your speed, the easier it is to come around the curve. And you want to keep your machine moving as well. You can't turn a stationary car. Same with the sewing machine. You can't turn around a curve when you're not moving. Keep it moving. Okay. So here we have a nice even seam around that inside curve. Okay, so here I've cut an S-shaped curve where we're undulating in and out of inside and outside shapes. I'm going to stick to the 3/8 seam allowance again. Just needle down again, hold the threads in an L shape with the hand in an L shape. I'm going to reverse back. Just secures those stitches, stops it from coming undone, and then I'm going to come forward, and you will see my hands move in the directions depending on whether it's an inside curve or an outside curve. So the idea is to complete your curves without lifting your presser foot, or without having to lift your presser foot, or reposition yourself. And if you look at that, we've got a nice even curve. A little wobble there, but on the whole it's a nice even curve. So cut up some bits of old fabric. Don't use your best fabric, but get some practicing in. If you're new to sewing, get to grips with sewing curves. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel for more great Learn to Sew content to help make you a better dressmaker.